In this episode, we start with a part of cybersecurity that many beginners have heard about without always understanding what makes it useful, because open-source threat intelligence collection sounds like a specialized activity when it is really a practical way of learning from information that is already publicly available. For someone studying CompTIA CISA+, the important idea is not becoming a spy or chasing every rumor on the internet. The real point is learning how defenders gather relevant public information, evaluate what it means, and use it to make smarter security decisions inside their own environment. Open Source Intelligence, OSINT, collection helps analysts understand threat activity, emerging risks, attacker behavior, and changes in the wider security landscape without needing secret access or privileged sources. That matters because no organization defends itself in isolation. Attackers reuse ideas, vulnerabilities become widely known, criminal campaigns leave traces in public reporting, and researchers regularly publish findings that can help defenders prepare before the same problems show up inside their own networks. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyberauthor.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. A good place to begin is by clarifying what open source means in this context. It does not mean open source software specifically, and it does not simply mean anything found online must be useful. It refers to information that is legally and publicly available from sources such as websites, technical reports, public databases, security blogs, news coverage, social platforms, academic papers, public code repositories, breach reporting, and other materials that anyone can access without special authorization. That distinction matters because new learners sometimes confuse OSINT with unauthorized investigation, secret collection, or deep technical intrusion work. Proper OSINT collection stays on the side of legitimate public information gathering. The value comes not from breaking barriers, but from noticing patterns, gathering relevant context, and organizing what is already visible into something the organization can actually use. In other words, the intelligence does not become valuable because it is hidden. It becomes valuable because it is collected with purpose, reviewed with care, and connected to the security questions that matter most. OSINT matters in cybersecurity because attackers leave signals in public view long before, during, and after their operations. Researchers publish analysis of phishing campaigns. Ransomware groups expose their own behavior through leaked sites and public statements. Infrastructure details can sometimes be observed through public records, and software weakness information often becomes widely discussed soon after discovery. Even job postings, company announcements, and public technical documentation can reveal useful context about what technologies an organization depends on and what kinds of attacks may matter most. For defenders, that means public information can provide early warning, improve situational awareness, and help shape detection and response priorities. A security team that watches the wider environment is often better prepared than one that waits for every lesson to arrive through direct harm. That is one of the reasons OSINT collection shows up in a CISA+ context. It teaches analysts to think beyond their own alert queue and to understand that strong defense depends partly on observing the broader threat landscape with discipline and purpose. The sources used in OSINT collection can be very diverse, which is part of both the strength and the challenge of the practice. Public vendor advisories may describe emerging vulnerabilities. Researchers may publish detailed write-ups about attacker behavior. Public forums may reveal conversations about exploited weaknesses, and news reporting may indicate which sectors are under pressure from current campaigns. Social platforms may surface early chatter, though that information often needs extra validation. Domain registration details, exposed infrastructure clues, public documentation, and code repositories may all add useful pieces of context in the right case. The challenge is that these sources are not equal in quality, relevance, or reliability. Some are technical and precise, while others are noisy, speculative, or motivated by attention rather than accuracy. A beginner should understand that OSINT collection is not just about finding more information. It is about finding the right information, knowing how much trust to place in it, and recognizing that public availability does not automatically make something accurate or operationally useful. Another foundational idea is that collection by itself is not intelligence. Gathering 100 articles, screenshots, blog posts, or social media claims does not automatically make a security team smarter. Raw material becomes useful only when someone reviews it, filters it, compares it, and explains why it matters to the organization. That means OSINT collection should begin with a question rather than with random browsing. A team may want to know whether a certain type of organization is being targeted, whether a newly disclosed flaw is already being exploited, whether a known criminal group has shifted tactics, or whether a campaign uses infrastructure that overlaps with suspicious activity seen internally. Once the question is clear, collection becomes more efficient and more disciplined. Without that focus, analysts can drown in information that is technically interesting but operationally irrelevant. For new learners, this is one of the most important lessons to grasp. Good intelligence work is not about collecting everything. It is about collecting what helps answer a specific defensive need. That is why planning matters before collection even begins. An analyst or team should know what they are trying to learn, why the answer matters, who will use the result, and how urgent the need really is. A team investigating suspicious email activity might look for public reporting on similar lures, sender infrastructure, or recent campaigns against the same industry. A vulnerability management team might collect public information about how quickly a newly disclosed flaw is being weaponized. A leadership briefing may require a broader view of threats affecting the business sector over the last quarter. These are different needs, and they require different collection choices. Planning helps keep the work aligned to the mission and prevents a common problem in threat intelligence, which is spending time on interesting collection that never changes a decision. For CISA Plus learners, this connects directly to operational thinking. Security work is strongest when it is purposeful. Collection should support investigation, prioritization, detection, communication, or readiness, not exist as a detached research habit with no defined outcome. Once collection starts, source evaluation becomes one of the most important skills in the whole process. Not every public source deserves equal confidence, and even good sources can be wrong, incomplete, or influenced by bias. Analysts need to think about the source's track record, its likely access to the facts, the quality of its technical details, its willingness to separate evidence from speculation, and whether its claims align with other available information. A post that makes dramatic claims without artifacts, corroboration, or technical explanation should be treated very differently from a careful report supported by samples, infrastructure details, and observed behavior. Timeliness matters too, because an accurate report from months ago may not reflect current attacker methods. Context matters as well, because information relevant to one sector or region may not apply directly to another. OSINT collection therefore requires judgment, not just searching. Analysts must continuously ask whether the material is credible, whether it answers the question at hand, and whether it should influence action or remain only a tentative lead. Collection can happen manually, automatically, or through a mix of both, and beginners should understand the difference at a high level. Manual collection involves analysts reading reports, monitoring trusted sources, reviewing public disclosures, and following developing events directly. Automated collection helps by pulling in data feeds, tracking changes, aggregating public reporting, and helping teams monitor large volumes of information they could not review one page at a time. Some of this can involve connections through an application programming interface, API, but the key concept is not the technical method. The key concept is scale and consistency. Manual work can provide nuance and deeper understanding, while automation can reduce delay and help surface patterns faster. The strongest programs usually combine both. They let systems gather and organize the routine flow of public information while human analysts review relevance, judge reliability, and decide what actually matters. OSINT collection becomes much more effective when automation supports human thinking rather than trying to replace it. The next step is often enrichment, which means adding more context to what was collected so the information becomes more useful for investigation or defense. A suspicious domain found in public reporting becomes more meaningful if it matches internal email logs. A malware family discussed in research becomes more actionable if its known indicators of compromise, IOCs, align with telemetry already seen in the environment. A campaign description becomes more valuable when its tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs, help explain a pattern of activity in recent alerts. Enrichment is where public information and internal visibility begin to reinforce each other. That is also where OSINT collection shifts from general awareness into practical security operations. The analyst is no longer just reading about threats in the abstract. The analyst is asking whether those threats connect to the organization's assets, users, systems, and recent events. This connection point is what makes threat intelligence operationally useful rather than merely interesting. Beginners should also understand the limits and pitfalls of OSINT collection, because public information creates as many traps as opportunities. False claims spread quickly, especially during high-profile incidents, and repeated reporting does not always mean independent confirmation. One early rumor can echo across many places and give the illusion of broad validation when multiple writers are really repeating the same uncertain source. Public reporting can also overemphasize dramatic cases while underreporting quieter but more relevant risks. Analysts may fall into the habit of chasing whatever is most visible rather than what is most relevant to their own environment. There is also the danger of attribution error, where a team assumes a specific threat actor is responsible based on weak pattern matching instead of strong evidence. OSINT collection must therefore be handled with the same disciplined thinking used in other parts of analysis. Public data is valuable, but it is still data that needs verification, context, and caution before it should drive meaningful decisions. Legal and ethical boundaries are another important part of the topic. Because the word open is involved, some beginners incorrectly assume that anything technically reachable on the internet is fair game for intelligence collection. That is not the right mindset. Public availability does not erase the need for lawful, ethical, and policy-aligned behavior. A mature organization defines what sources are acceptable, what collection methods are permitted, how data should be stored, and how privacy or third-party risk concerns will be handled. Analysts should not blur the line between legitimate public gathering and behavior that creates legal or operational exposure. They should also think about the safety of the organization's own collection activity. Visiting risky sources carelessly, engaging in ways that expose the organization, or pulling in unvetted material without review can create new problems. Strong OSINT collection is responsible collection. It respects legal limits, avoids unnecessary risk, and aligns to the organization's governance rather than operating as an uncontrolled side activity. A simple example helps show how all of this works in practice. Imagine a security team begins seeing suspicious email messages that use a familiar business theme and direct users to a fake login page. Public reporting shows that several organizations in the same industry have recently been targeted with a similar lure. Researchers have documented related infrastructure. The domains used in the campaign share certain patterns, and the fake pages harvest credentials before redirecting victims to a harmless site to reduce suspicion. None of that proves the organization is facing the exact same campaign, but it gives analysts useful context. They can compare the public details to internal email telemetry, user reports, and authentication events. If the patterns line up, the team gains a stronger basis for blocking related infrastructure, warning users, and reviewing whether compromised accounts show signs of misuse. In this way, OSINT collection does not replace internal investigation. It strengthens it by giving the team a broader picture of what may be happening and what similar attacks look like elsewhere. This is also why OSINT collection supports many security functions beyond classic threat intelligence teams. Incident responders use public reporting to understand ongoing campaigns and likely attacker behavior. Vulnerability teams use it to judge which flaws are being actively exploited and which deserve faster attention. Detection engineers use it to refine alerts based on observed TTPs and known malicious patterns. Leadership teams benefit from sector-level awareness that helps them understand why certain risks are becoming more urgent. Even a security operations center, SOC, benefits because analysts can triage faster when they recognize public context behind suspicious activity. The same public reporting that informs a strategic briefing may also help explain a single alert on a Tuesday morning. That is part of what makes the topic so useful for CISA+. It shows that threat intelligence collection is not a separate world far away from daily operations. When done well, it becomes part of how multiple security functions stay informed, aligned, and ready. By the end of this discussion, open-source threat intelligence collection should feel much more grounded and practical than it may have at the beginning. OSINT collection is not about gathering random internet material or pretending that public reporting speaks for itself. It is about identifying useful public sources, collecting with purpose, evaluating credibility, enriching findings with context, and connecting what is learned to real defensive decisions. The strongest programs know that public information can provide early warning, clarify attacker behavior, and improve investigations, but only when analysts stay disciplined about relevance, reliability, and ethics. For a CISA Plus learner, the core lesson is that effective defense depends partly on seeing beyond the organization's own walls while still thinking carefully about what the organization actually needs to know. Once you understand that balance, OSINT collection stops sounding like vague internet research and starts looking like what it really is in modern cybersecurity, a structured way to turn public information into practical defensive awareness.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.